All right. Georgia survives in Lexington. You got LSU surviving in Columbia. And then, of course, Quinn Ewers goes down with injury. We'll talk about all that and more. It's football, bro. Let's go ahead and get into it. Let's talk about some of the past games this weekend. Of course, you could find this on the YouTube at Broshmo, or you could check out the audio portion of this podcast on, well, your respective podcasting platforms. Let's talk about the games. We're going to start with the Friday game, of course, Arizona, Kansas State. And Arizona, I'm sorry, when on offense, your one trick is throw it to Tetero, it ain't gonna work. That's kind of what the worries were with the first couple of games in the season. As, oh no, man, the defense don't look so good against New Mexico. Then you go to face in-state rival Northern Arizona, and they're like, okay, well, we're not gonna lose to Tetero McMillan. We're gonna have 2 to 3 guys covering this dude, and yeah, you end up only winning 22-10. Kansas State came out, was like, yeah, no, we're gonna try not to lose to Tetero, and we're gonna tell these guys, hey, you're gonna have to win with something else. And Arizona simply couldn't stop Avery Johnson. Kansas State's like, hey, we are the truth when it comes to the Big 12. Arizona, you aren't the contenders here. We are. We're going to be challenging that Utah team who was resting Cam Rising this past week. So they go out, they win 31-7, and they looked really good in doing so. They really do. The run game for Kansas State is scary. You have like a 3-4 headed running room there, whether it's Giddens, Edwards, Avery. So Kansas State, don't sleep on them, man. They're a good squad. They're a good squad. Well, let's talk about game of the week. Might not be the game of the week, because that LSU South Carolina game was pretty lit. But surprise game of the week being Georgia versus Kentucky. Georgia holds on 13-12 against Kentucky. And this could be a case of Georgia looking past Kentucky, because you got the matchup against Bama, not this weekend, but the following weekend. Georgia will be on a bye this week. So maybe it's a case of them looking past Kentucky. But you knew Kentucky, all they could do was run the football. Like, this offensive line for Kentucky is not that good. It's not. And honestly, it wasn't. Like, they were able to get home when it came to the passing game and get pressure. I'll talk about Jalen Walker a little bit later in the show, but dude was phenomenal in this game. Georgia, they were phenomenal, but they were able to let Kentucky do enough on the ground to get points. Kentucky being able to kick a field goal every quarter of the game, and that was almost enough. So the concern points to the offense, which was something that we've kind of talked about, like in that Clemson game in the first half. Okay, this doesn't look like your usual Georgia offense. Carson Beck and the offense, they just don't look like they're on rhythm. They don't look like it just doesn't look like the offense is on, like, has timing or is on schedule. That's probably the best way to put it. And that kind of reared its ugly head in this game after thinking, okay, they had the get right game last week against Tennessee Tech. They'll be fine. But no, like, Carson Beck, when this team isn't using play action, if you look at like true dropbacks, again, taking away the influence from the run game, so no play action, no RPOs and such, Carson Beck wasn't extraordinary. And neither are his playmakers. Like, outside of Dominic Lovett, I don't think he trusts anybody on this squad. None of the tight ends have really emerged, and they have 3 pretty solid ones. Kobe Young, right? I can't remember off the top of my head, but Kobe Young, he hasn't really emerged like I thought he might for this offense. And it showed up, man. I mean, at least in the big moment, like Carson Beck was able to help this team drive and score to take the lead and kind of let the defense take care of things. To be fair, we could criticize Stoops for not going for it on fourth down when you are in enemy territory. It's like, oh, the defense. Our defense has been good all game. I'm gonna put it on the back of the defense. Then just go for the fourth down. You trust your defense. Go for the fourth down. I think it's as simple as that. But Georgia escapes here. They got a lot to figure out before they take on Bama, who we'll talk about in a sec. But yeah, man. I think as far, I don't know, man. I like when you look at national championship contenders year after year after year, they have games like this. Like you look at Alabama and Auburn going down the wire. Honestly, Bama probably should have lost that game last year. You converted fourth and goal at the 30. They ended up being national or a playoff team. Washington had a couple of close calls with not just with Oregon, but with like Arizona State. It's not like Arizona State was a crazy good team last year. They were pretty middle of the road, mediocre. Michigan, off the top of my head, was it Wyoming last season for them? That was like, oh, that game wasn't as beautiful as it should have been, or maybe that was Texas, Wyoming. I can't remember, but regardless, like I still think Georgia's the top team. They are. When it comes to talent, they is him. They're going to be in the college football playoff. They're going to be contenders, but they're going to kind of hope this game isn't a little bit of the norm. Big loss in this game was Tate Ratledge. I don't know how long he's going to be out, but he was easily their best offensive lineman. They did have some struggles along the offensive line, which I'll talk about again later when we get to our stock report. If you're unfamiliar with the stock report, that's basically just where I talk about some of the NFL draft eligible prospects, the guys that helped their stock and the guys that hurt their stock. Let's keep moving. We're going to talk about Alabama versus Wisconsin and Jalen Milroe. Like, hey, I know Broshmo is going to be putting together his Heisman contenders in the next few weeks, and my name better be on there. He played a good game. They're leaning into the running aspect a lot more when it comes to Jalen Milroe, and that's great for this offense. It truly is. It's either like when you look at short yardage situations, or when you look at what they do in like the short to intermediate game, it's like, hey, we want to run the football. Whether it's Justice Haynes, whether it's J.M. Miller, whether it's Milroe, and they were able to do that really, really well against Wisconsin. Biggest, like you come out and say, well, Wisconsin lost Tyler Van Dyke on the first series. I honestly don't think it mattered much. Alabama was moving the football, but also Milroe's ability to attack deep. Like he has become a really good deep ball passer. Like, I get it. On, like, the throw-to-throw basis, is he accurate all the time? Hell no. But that deep ball's coming together and looking really good, and it's created a very explosive offense for Bama. And I will say, this was a good bounce back from the struggle bus you were on last week against South Florida. And maybe it's a case of, like, honestly, you just gotta kind of bite the pillow and play man. Like force Milroe to really have to like bring extra pressure, put pressure on him, force him to either have to find the guy while under pressure. That could be the case here. Defensively, I think it's kind of a bit more of a concern for Alabama, as I get it. They only allowed 10 points against Wisconsin in Madison, but this run defense don't look great. Like, I remember we did the watch along for this game, and I was like, listen, I know you got a fumble or two, Wisconsin, but you have been your most effective when running the football because you're able to get big chunks and gains. And this Alabama run defense isn't what it used to be under Saban. It's not. And where Wisconsin made their mistakes was through the air. Well, that's not fair to say because you had like Malusi had a fumble. You had a fumble later on from someone else. And so it's not fair that's where they made their most mistakes. But that's with the run game, at least they were moving the sticks. So I think when it comes to Georgia, Alabama, because I think both teams are going to be on bye this week and before they face one another. If you're Georgia, it's like, okay, we've kind of struggled with the passing game. That Alabama defense, you could run on it. And we got 3 really good running backs. So Bama's going to have to figure out that run defense. Georgia, yeah, you might have to figure out, okay, who are our go-to guys when the pressure is on in the passing game, but know you can win on the ground. So that's going to be a very fascinating matchup in a couple of weeks. There's only one more game I really want to highlight before we get into the top 25 here. And actually, there's 2 more games. I lied. I'm sorry. Boston College and Missouri. First off, hey, hit my parlay. Didn't hit my 10-leg parlay. But I hit a 4-leg parlay with that had Boston College. I think they were plus 18.5, somewhere around there. Took that, got me my money. Thank you, Boston College. But Missouri, I think when they got down early in this ball game, they really put it together. Like, and this was under pressure. Boston College came out blitzing. I think they blitzed like over 50% of the time in this ball game. And Brady Cook played well under pressure. The run game was really good. They were like, okay, you're going to blitz? We're going to take advantage of that. You're going to try to get people in the backfield. We're going to make sure the ball is upfield before you know it. And they've done a really good job with guys like Noel, who was a transfer from Appalachian State, with Marcus Carroll, who was a transfer from, I think it was Georgia State. They've ran really, really well. Brady Cook, not the fastest guy, but he's done enough with his feet, but also doing it with his arm and taking advantage of weapons like, Luther Burden and Theo Weiss. So they were able to do enough offensively and let their defense kind of create turnovers and create opportunities for them. That was kind of the thing with Boston College in this game. You have oh my gosh, quarterback's name, Castellanos? Probably butchered that. Who is a threat with his feet, but in this game showed, hey, I can pass the ball pretty well. And I think Missouri did a good job at, honestly, probably the two bad decisions in this game for Boston College through the air. For Castellanos. Oh my gosh, I'm butchering his name, but you know who I'm talking about. They ended up being interceptions. And a lot of that was kind of forcing him out of structure. Like when he was inside of structure, like he was wheeling and dealing. He was doing a good job helping this Boston College team move the ball. But Mizzou being able to survive, I thought it was a good look. Are they a true contender for the SEC championship? I mean, for the most part, the Sketty outside of Bama, it's promising for Mizzou. They're probably going to be a 10-win team. They're going to be in the college football playoff. And this might feel wild to say. I don't know if being a 10-win team automatically is going to give you an automatic into the SEC championship game. I just don't. But good win here by Missouri being able to survive. All right, last game I do want to cover here before we get into the top 25. It will be South Carolina LSU. This was the game after things got really out of hand against Wisconsin and Alabama when we were doing the watch along. This was the game we went to, and it was good. It was good. I went back, watched the whole game, and had a great time with it. Like you gotta feel for South Carolina because they should have won this game. LSU did not. I would say did not deserve to win this game, but not. But that's football. Sometimes the deserving team doesn't always win. LSU did not play up to their talent. The defense is still a problem. Garrett Nussmeier went under pressure, got careless with the football, and I don't know why they're not leaning on Durham, their freshman running back, more because he's hella good. You had South Carolina have 2 pick sixes called back. The officiating wasn't necessarily that good in this game. I feel like that LSU, they don't do a good enough job of leaning on Kyron Lacey, who is their best offensive weapon. Like LSU just didn't feel like they deserved to win this game. I mean, you had Lenora Sellers go down with an ankle injury, tried to come back, couldn't do it. So you had Ashford, who, hey, man, if we're being honest, Ashford gave this team a chance to win at the end of the ball game with that final drive, or a chance to tie the ball game up. So, like, this was kind of crushing for South Carolina. This is a game that they should have won. Because, like, LSU, like, golly, that defense sucks. It's a problem. It's a problem. The run, like, the gap discipline, like, you could go back to the Rocket Sanders 66, I think it was a 66-yard run. And you have multiple guys occupying the same gaps. You can't let that happen. And then I think it was the safety coming downhill, takes a bad angle, and Rocket just goes right by him. Rough. What is with this? Rough, woof. What is this LSU team? What is it? What is it with it? Like, there's talent there. They're just not playing up to it. Like, this defense is not disciplined. Like, sure, oh, cool, when they're able to hit home with those blitzes and Harold Perkins is able to get in there and be a problem. Yeah, they're fun. But, dude, the run defense isn't good. They've been shown to be susceptible through the air. We saw that in the USC game. Defense is a problem. And when the offense is making mistakes, again, should have had 2 pick sixes, especially that last one to take the lead from Manowari. Then you had the stupid, what was it, blindside block or whatever on Garrett Nussmeier, who was essentially was out of the play. But he was making an effort to go after the ball carrier. But honestly, there stood no chance. I don't know why you go ahead and you try to make a hit on Nussmeier. Like, sure, was it clean? Yeah, I thought it was in my opinion, that looked clean. But when it comes to the rules, you can't do that. Quarterbacks are a protected species in football nowadays. They're a protected species, and you just can't do that. So it kind of is what it is, man. It sucks for South Carolina, but I'm glad to see them just be a much better team than what we saw in week 1. Granted, that Old Dominion game, it was really sloppy conditions. That defense is pretty scary. I'm going to talk a little bit in the stock report about that matchup between Dylan Stewart and Will Campbell, because it was pretty fun. You basically saw 2 top 10 draft players going at it, and it was a good time. But LSU needs to lean on the run more, specifically with Durham. Passing game, like, I get it. Garrett Nussmeier got under pressure here and there. He likes to throw off his back foot, but like Nussmeier, I'm not. This is not to like taking shots at Nussmeier, like, because for a large portion of this game, I thought he was pretty good. He made some hella good throws. But But if you can limit those mistakes where you're panicking and getting the ball out under pressure, like with the second pick six that never was to Imanawari. I have no like. I don't know if he was trying to get the guy in the back of the end zone and he just like didn't get enough under the football. Like you got to eliminate those mistakes. But LSU, they survive. Kind of is what it is. Let's go ahead. Let's get into my college football top 25. As I have no fallers this week. Yay! No fallers on the week for me. So I'm just gonna talk about a bunch of teams that I want to that are on the cusp of being top 25 teams. I do want to give an honorable mention to there was just so many teams I did want to talk about. Like I'm gonna give an honorable mention to Indiana, who just blew out UCLA this past week. They will get Nebraska. No. Illinois takes on Nebraska. Who's Indiana take on? Charlotte. So they should start the year 4-0. They'll probably be on this list in the next week or so. But Indiana, got to give them a shout out. Let's start with Washington State, who ends up beating Washington for the the Apple Cup that they play for or whatnot. But they beat Washington. This is a Washington State team that has a lot of offense. And honestly, the defense is better than you'd expect. And they came through not one big, but a big win. It's probably a better way to put that. And yeah, they will be going on to take on, let's see. They got San Jose State next weekend. There's a good shot that they probably win the Pac-12, the two-team conference of the Pac-12. Pittsburgh, watch out. Pittsburgh's here, man. Pittsburgh's looking good. They're looking fun. Like, offensively, they look fun. They end up beating West Virginia this week. And big game also by the defense. They were able to force Garrett Green into a lot of mistakes. I think he had like 5 turnover-worthy throws in that game. They end up winning on the final drive, 34-32. Big win there. Northern Illinois. Listen, I just want to wait and see before I just throw them up there in the top 25. I get it. It was a huge win in South Bend against Notre Dame. Let's see how they do in conference play. I just want to see more of them. And they'll be taking on, honestly, an okay Buffalo team this weekend. Then we got Iowa State. They were on a bye, and they'll be taking on Arkansas State, who, golly, Michigan, what the hell? Ends up only winning by, Arkansas State ends up losing only by 10 to Michigan. It's supposed to be a get-right game for Michigan. I don't know what's up with that. Illinois, they had a really solid game against Central Michigan. They end up winning 30-9. They get a big game against Nebraska next week, so definitely be on the look for that one. That could be a sneaky good game. I love the playmakers for Illinois. I was always dating back to his UTS days. Zachary Franklin. I was a big Zachary Franklin guy. Things didn't work out. A lot of that was injury last year at Ole Miss. He's here at Illinois. Pat O'Brien's been pretty spectacular. Is it O'Brien or Bryant? I'll take a look at that later. But yeah, no, you get a veteran quarterback there, another former Ole Miss quarterback, or another former Ole Miss player. So yeah, man, watch out for Illinois. UNLV, man, big win against Kansas at Kansas. You win. You're able to drive down the field and. There was some theatrics on that Friday night game against Kansas where it was I forgot why. I think it may have been a unnecessary roughness or something or unsportsmanlike conduct after the play where there were it was I think it was a 4th and 1 where they were trying to get a fresh set of downs, but it was in a wonky situation where it was okay, you're at the 2-yard line, but you're still able to get a first down. They did get the first down. Since it was a dead ball penalty, it pushed them back. So now your 1st and goal is at the 16. But they were able to get it in there. And man, Jalen Daniels is not him, unfortunately. Had a couple of bad picks. One where he just didn't see Jalen Catalan over the top. The other where he essentially just, I don't know, he stared down his target. Jackson Woodard was just like, he's not going to throw this guy in the middle of the field, is he? Because I'm standing right here. I don't know why he's looking at this dude. Oh, he threw it to him. Like, yeah, Kansas unfortunately got some concerns. But don't sleep on UNLV, man. Undefeated currently. And then Syracuse, they had the bye this past week. They'll be taking on Stanford. I believe that game is Friday night. And then BYU, I believe they also... No, they didn't have a bye. They had the real late game on Saturday, taking on Wyoming. And they just spanked them 34-14. Big game this weekend for BYU. They'll be taking on Kansas. Memphis. Oh my gosh. They go to Tallahassee. And they beat them boys from Tallahassee. I don't know why I'm talking that way, but I am. They beat Florida State 20-12. The spiral from Florida State just continues to spiral. Where is rock bottom if you are Florida State? Is Mike Norvell going to lose his job? I don't think so. Last year, they had a championship caliber team. They lost a lot. So, it was to be expected that this team might have some sort of, how would you say, drop off, but start 0-3 is kind of scary. But I don't know, man. We'll see what happens with Mike Norvell and Florida State, and potentially you can go to the other Florida team, Florida, and Billy Napier. But good win by Memphis, and I really like that offense for them. They look like the favorites there in the American. Then, of course, Rutgers. They had the week off. They'll be taking on a good Virginia Tech team, a really good Virginia Tech team. Virginia Tech team I thought might have been undefeated at this juncture, but they're not. They're 2-1. Rutgers behind Kyle Monangai. I think that's probably should be a win, but again, don't sleep on Virginia Tech. Let's go ahead and get into this top 25, starting with SMU. They had the bye. I can't drop them out. They'll get TCU. TCU had a hell of a game against actually Central Florida, which we'll talk about in the next minute. But let's see how they do against TCU. Like, SMU just hasn't been good this year outside of their win against like Houston Christian. They've been a big letdown, and they have one of the easier schedules in the ACC. So I'm just kind of shocked that they're not that good. Just shocked. Looks like they're probably moving to Kevin Jennings at quarterback. I thought Stone was good for him last year. They started the year doing this little 2-quarterback dance. And that last game, not obviously didn't have the game this week, but the week prior, they leaned a lot more on Jennings. Oklahoma, they were able to beat Tulane. Granted, yes, Tulane, they tried to stay in the game, but Oklahoma got out to a 2-score lead and never really looked back. They ended up beating Tulane 34-19. And now, okay, things get scary. You're going to be taking on Tennessee this upcoming week. But at least you get it in Norman. Central Florida had a fun game against TCU. Came down to the wire. They end up beating TCU 35-34. Rest easy, my Golden Knights. You get a bye this week. Take a breath. Take a breath. Take a bow and take a breath. Toledo, man, they smacked Mississippi State. To be fair, Mississippi State is definitely a team in rebuild. And I think things will be better in the future. But right now, Mississippi State is just really bad. And Toledo was like, yeah, they are really bad. Don't sleep on the MAC. MAC Nation, baby. Best Tuesday night in football. Wednesday night. But, yeah, man, they smacked them 41-17. Good win for Toledo. I think they're your front runners in the MAC. And then talked about the LSU game. They end up beating South Carolina in Columbia 36-33. Not a lot of promise there from the Tigers. They get a really bad UCLA team this week, and they should be what 4-1 heading into yeah, they should be a 4-1 team heading into that Ole Miss game because they get UCLA, and then I think they get someone else that's not too scary. Let's just check that real quick. South Alabama. That's right. South Alabama. Oh, South Alabama put up 87 points. I know it was like Northwestern State. Still, 87 points that's a lot of points. Oklahoma State here at 20 for me. Good game against Tulsa. It was kind of a get-right game for them. They win 45-10. They were up 45-0 at a juncture before they started pulling starters. However, they get Utah. This is the big game for Oklahoma State. You can stamp your flag as legit front runners for the Big 12 championship by winning this game. It is in Stillwater. Cam Rising won't be 100%. They haven't said if he'll play yet or not, but I imagine he's trending in that direction. So it's going to be a big game there for Oklahoma State. USC will head to Ann Arbor to take on Michigan, and I do believe that currently USC are like 6-point favorites. Yeah, they are 6-point favorites headed into Ann Arbor. And it's not looking good, not looking promising for Michigan, especially after that Arkansas State game. Like, golly, you had Warren throw like a couple of picks. You only beat them by 10. It was supposed to be a get-right game, and now you got to figure out things pretty quickly because you can't sleep on USC. Watch out. They kind of have a defense now this year. And offensively, Miller Moss is like, I've waited a long time to start. I'm making the most of it. So, yeah, don't sleep on USC. I imagine they potentially make a big jump next weekend in my top 25. Arizona, they drop a few spots after the loss. It's not the end-all, be-all for them. I still think they could get it. They could figure things out and get it back together, but they got a lot to figure out. Your offense just can't beat Tetero McMillan. It just can't. It just can't. The defense needs to be better. Will it? Golly, I don't know. Fortunately, they get a bye this week. Coming out of their bye, they'll be taking on freaking Utah. So, yay. And it's at Utah, so you don't love that. So you got a lot to figure out this week. Because, honestly, there's a good chance you're probably starting the year 2-2. And then you got, then Texas Tech comes to Tucson. And don't sleep on Texas Tech. They can put up a lot of points really quickly. Notre Dame, hey, they came out and pounded Purdue. I looked at that. Ooh, Notre Dame, they're only a 7.5-point favorite against Purdue. Well, I don't think Purdue's that good of a team, so give me that. And they were like, yeah, Purdue ain't that good of a team. We got good defense. We're going to run the ball down their throat. We beat them. What was it, 66-7? Yeah, but I'm still concerned. Can Notre Dame pass the football? They can't push the football downfield. Oh, Riley Leonard had 100 yards rushing. Okay. And don't worry, I'm going to get back to Clemson. They had a bye week, so I forgot about them. It's easy to forget about them. Coming out, Clemson, they'll be taking on NC State. NC State team that does not look good. Grayson McCall, I believe, went down with injury once again. Trying to remember, who did NC State take on this past weekend in a close game? I think it was Louisiana Tech. NC State ends up winning 30-20, so they do enough. I mean, yeah, I think they were a more talented team than Louisiana Tech, but that should be a good game for Clemson to be like, basically continue the momentum they had against Appalachian State. Be like, okay, no, we're gonna start rolling through teams. We didn't have a great opener, but no, hey, don't forget about us. We're legit contenders in the ACC. It's not just Miami and friends. It's not. It's not. So let's go ahead. Let's jump to the top 15. Louisville, I believe, had the bye this week. But this upcoming week is gonna be a tough. It's gonna be a tough matchup. You're taking on a good Georgia Tech team who's got a really good defense, and a very tough rushing offense. Georgia Tech put up 50, I think 59 on, VMI, Virginia Military Institute. They beat them like they should, but don't sleep on that Georgia Tech team. Louisville will get this in Louisville at LNN Federal Credit Union Stadium. But yeah, Louisville, I think, is, when it comes to their schedule, what does the future hold past this Georgia Tech game? I thought Notre Dame was coming up real close. So they get Georgia Tech, and then they go immediately to South Bend. So this is going to be a big 2 games for Louisville. Michigan, I kind of already harped on Michigan when I was talking about USC. I know they haven't played up to their talent. I still want to believe in the talent. If USC goes into Ann Arbor and just beats the piss out of Michigan, there's a good chance. I mean, I don't think I could drop them from my top 25, but they're definitely going to be in that 21 to 25 area. I don't know why I'm holding out hope on Michigan, but that I'm very conservative when it comes to my rankings. I don't like to just drop a team drastically after one loss. Typically, I think I did drop Michigan a spot or two this week just after a not impressive win. Regardless, is what it is. Liberty. I gotta give a shout out to Liberty at 13 here. This was a team that I was like, I think their opponents are gonna cover a lot this year. Because Liberty's not nearly as good as I thought they were. Granted, they did lose some talent, whether it's through the transfer portal or they lost a couple of guys through the draft. They're not as good as I thought. They still might be the best team in Conference USA, but they're not as good as I thought they were. So I was like, listen, I think last year they only beat UTEP by 14. So I'm going to take UTEP plus 23.5, and golly gee, they covered. I think they only beat UTEP by 18. I think the final score was 28-10. Yep, it was 28-10. But hey, Liberty gets a real team this week in ECU in East Carolina. It's not a conference game, but could be their first loss of the year. Kansas State has moved up here to 12. They take a big jump after pounding the Wildcats. Not pounding themselves, of course, but pounding the Arizona Wildcats. They looked really good. The offense looked fun as hell. The run game looks great. Every Johnson's a problem for opposing defenses. Yeah, man. They get BYU. Hopefully they don't sleep on BYU. I think that's a good BYU team. But if they're able to, which they should be. Listen, I'm not saying that, oh, watch out, BYU world beaters. They're gonna beat Kansas State. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying don't sleep on BYU because you're looking past BYU to that Oklahoma State game. That's all I'm saying. And then my Hurricanes. Weather delay be darned. They pounded Ball State 62-0. And then, hey, they get South Florida. They get South Florida this week. Don't sleep on South Florida. They'll play you tough for 54 minutes. So that should be a win for Miami before they start actual ACC play. And then the top 10 has not moved. I still got Tennessee at 10. Some people think it's too low. It's like, hey, they continue to win games. They'll move up. Every one of my top 10 is undefeated. What do you want me to do? Oh, well, I mean, they just blasted Kent State 71-0. They were up 60. What was it, 65? They were up 65-0 at halftime. Kent State's bad. Didn't they just lose to St. Francis? They're a bad representation of the MAC. That's not to take the sales out of Tennessee. Like, again, Tennessee coming off a big win of a Power 4 school at NC State, by the way. At NC State. So coming off a big win there, they'll take on Oklahoma. We'll see how teams like Penn State we'll see how Penn State bounces back this week. How Mizzou, I could see Tennessee making a considerable jump. I mean, Utah's got a big game this week, so like there could be a lot of change in this top 10 of this coming week. Oregon will get a bye this coming week. They started to look more like themselves. They end up beating Oregon State into the ground 49-14. The offense finally, it just looked smooth. You weren't having easy misses. The run game was able to run exceptionally well. The defense played well. I still worry about the run defense a little bit there with Oregon, but good win for them. They get to rest easy this week. Penn State, they were on a bye. They get Kent State. Kent State just got pounded into the ground by Tennessee, and then the previous week they lost to St. Francis. They should win that game big. After that whole little stumble against Bowling Green, this should be a get-right game for Penn State. Mizzou, they'll be taking on a scrappy Vandy team. I think Vandy's coming off a loss, aren't they? Here, let's see. Yeah, because they're 2-1 now. Excuse me. Oh, wow. Vandy losing to Georgia State. Vandy, can you just not be like, you were feeling good after 2 weeks of the year? What happened, Vandy? What happened? But Missouri takes on Vandy. You're kind of hoping, okay, let's try to blast this SEC rival, this SEC team, get back on track. We faced a real scrappy Boston College team. The unfortunate thing is Vandy's a very scrappy school, but they are coming off of a disheartening loss. And then Utah, they got Oklahoma State this week. The big game for Utah. Is Cam Rising going to be healthy? Kind of the big question. He sat out this past week. They end up being Utah State 38-21. That was another game where I was like, hey, no Cam Rising. You might want to take. I think Utah State was either like plus 19.5 or plus 20.5. And I was like, you might want to take the points in that game. Ended up working out well. But hey, that's still a really good defense for Utah. If they can get Cam Rising, then that offense is going to be able to take some of the heat off of the defense by, well, being able to actually orchestrate drives. So again, there could be a lot of change here, whether it's Utah maybe going down or Mizzou playing a close game against Vandy or Penn State making Kent State look competitive. So there, and I mean, Tennessee getting a big win over Oklahoma definitely would matter more, so we could see them move up. And then the top 5 remains the same. Ole Miss, they smack Wake Forest 40-6. They get Georgia Southern, so they will be 3-0 before they head to who do they got before LSU? Ole Miss schedule. Kentucky. Okay, so unfortunately for Kentucky, this one's not in Lexington. They actually would also take on South Carolina. So Ole Miss has a couple of you could call them challenges before they have to take on LSU. So yeah, could be fun. Jackson Dart Heisman Trophy season, baby. Alabama, they pounded Wisconsin. Am worried about the run defense, but the offense is looking explosive. You love to see it. They're going to be on a bye before they have to go take on Georgia. So good for Bama. Texas, let's talk about the Quinn Ewers thing here a little bit. Doesn't look that serious. He won't be playing against next week. They have Louisiana Monroe, I think that's fine. Rest them. You're happy that the abdominal injury is not that severe. And I think they get Mississippi State after that. So, hey, if you want to rest Quinn Ewers 2 games, I think you could do that. Like Archie Manning looked good. I know it was UTSA. Let's reel back. But he looked good. And he should be able to, I think he should be able to win against teams like the Warhawks and the Bulldogs. So, Mississippi State Bulldogs, mind you. So I think they should be A-okay with Archie at the helm for now. And but I think you definitely want Quinn Ewers. I don't think you throw Archie to the Wolves just yet in terms of, hey, we're a national championship contenders. So Ewers is down. So go out and win us games. I know some people will be like, well, Archie looked better than Ewers did in that game against UTSA. No. I would say stick with the guy that got you here, the guy that had a massive game in Ann Arbor. Stick with him. Archie's time can wait for now. Ohio State had a bye. They get Marshall this week. It's irrelevant. Talked about Georgia being able to get by against Kentucky. You're gonna have teams that kind of choke here. Like good teams are gonna have scares here and there. They're gonna have games that, yeah, they probably should have won by a lot more, but hey, every now and then you're not always gonna play your best. What separates the good from the great teams are those teams that don't always play their best and they have close calls. They play their best in big games. This could have been a looking ahead game against Bama. You're looking to the bye to get ready, and you overlook Kentucky, who got smacked by South Carolina the week prior. I get it. Tate Ratledge is kind of a big thing here. If he's out for an extended period of time, like honestly, the only thing really working for you offensively is the run game, which sets up the play action where Carson Beck's been at his best. At least you know you can lean on the defense, but they get a bye this week. I'm not going to move these teams significantly, so everyone for the most part stays in place outside of like Kansas State, Arizona. They both went their separate ways as Kansas State got the big win, but there's my top 25. Yes. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. You can check out, of course, more college football, NFL draft content on the channel. But let's go ahead and give a shout out to today's sponsor, as that's going to be Underdog Fantasy, man. Got them right up there. Might as well. Here, let's just go to the big screen. Yeah, let's give a shout out to Underdog Fantasy. When you use promo code Broshmo, when you sign up, they match that first deposit up to $125. It's the best place to play weekly fantasy best ball. You can even, that's right, you can even do player prop bets and hit big. They legitimately for the NFL season, they have promos every day. They have a different promo every day for your NFL games. And of course, I think their Thursday, Friday slate, they got discounts for the underdogs when it comes to college football. So get in on the action at Underdog Fantasy. When you do sign up, please do use promo code Broshmo. They will match that first deposit up to $250. So, let's go. But as always, please bet responsibly. Bet within your means. Welcome to the stock report portion as we take a look at who helped their stock, who hurt their stock among the draft eligible prospects. So let's go ahead, get into this sucker with Jalen Catalan. We're starting with Friday night. He took on Kansas and had himself a game. Allowed no catches on 3 targets. Ended up with a big interception that went for 46 yards. It was a great return and had 4 tackles in the game. And I'm going to be straight up, man, with you guys. Jalen Catalon, I'm so glad to see him playing football again. Coming in at 5'11, 205. He was someone that I thought was a day two pick a few years ago. And what has really screwed Jalen Catalon was his body's ability to let him down. He has been so hurt, so banged up, and it's probably going to be the only reason he ends up not getting drafted. This dude's going to be in camp. Best believe it. He's that talented. He's got that type of range. But I don't think you can I don't know if you can really draft him with the injury concerns. I mean, I could see him getting drafted at the back end of day 3 just simply because you don't want to let this guy be a UDFA and having to compete for him as an undrafted free agent. Maybe you just take a flyer on him in the 6th, 7th round. But the injury concerns are legit, guys. You go back to his senior season in high school, he had an ACL injury. You go to his freshman season, he suffered a labrum tear, so we're talking 2 injuries. You go to his redshirt freshman year, he ends up having meniscus surgery, but he ends up playing through it. He had meniscus surgery prior to the season, excuse me. Plays after that, ends up being a first-team All-American, but we're talking about 3 injuries right there off the bat. He had his season cut short in 2021 because of a shoulder injury and a broken hand in 2022. He injured his shoulder in the season opener, ended up missing the season as he underwent reconstructive surgery in the offseason. So we got 6 injuries right there. And then he transfers from Arkansas to Texas in 2023. He played in 8 games with 4 starts, suffered a lower leg injury, but that one was a little less severe. But we're talking 7 injuries over the course of his career. This man's career has been derailed by injury. I don't know if you could take a shot on that, but what you're getting as a prospect is an explosive athlete with really good range. Someone who plays with that dog in him. He doesn't mind coming downhill and throwing caution to the wind and throwing his body around. You're playing with a guy, or you're getting a guy who has demonstrated, when healthy, a lot of ball skills throughout his career. Like, you go to that portion where he was probably his healthiest in his career, 2000 and 2001. He had 5 interceptions and 8 pass breakups. And on top of that, he is a good locker room guy. He is a natural-born leader. Dude truly is, especially from the sideline. I say especially from the sideline. When he was hurt, like, he didn't let injury get him down. He was someone who was able to, like, rally his teammates together and keep the energy up. But he is Mr. Glass, unfortunately. He is Mr. Glass, so kind of sucks. But I'm going to stick with this game here. I'm going to talk about actually his teammate, Jackson Woodard, out of UNLV. Had a good game against Kansas where he had 11 tackles, 3 defensive stops. He also had that 26-yard interception where Jalen Daniels just stared down his target, his first read, and basically all Woodard had to do was jump it. He was also a guy that was listed on Mel Kiper's top 10 inside linebackers. So I was like, I got to add him to the list. And then he ends up having the big game, the interception Friday night. So I was like, okay, let's go watch this guy. And I think I'm not as high on him as Mel is, apparently, because I assume Mel probably has him as an early day 3 pick. I have him more as like a mid to late day 3 pick. He comes in as 6'3", 230 pounds. And he's got a great story. The dude was a walk-on at Arkansas. He was a preferred walk-on, so he was someone Arkansas didn't offer a scholarship to, but did recruit and were like, hey, we want you to come in and try out. And he ends up making the team off of that. Redshirts his freshman season, but never was a starter at Arkansas. Played a lot of special teams his final year in 2022. But when the DC at the time, Barry Odin from Arkansas, decides to take the head coaching job at UNLV, he said, "Hey, no, Woodard is one of these guys that I need to bring to this UNLV program if we're gonna, try to turn things around." So Woodard ends up transferring, following his DC, was an immediate starter in 2023, ended up being a first team All Mountain West, and this year's probably going to be once again a first team All Mountain West. Like, he's a very high character, high character. He's a leader. He's got that uh, Captain C on the jersey. He's someone that has extensive community service work. And I mean, again, like you hear it not just from the coach and staff, but you hear it from his teammates. You talk about this guy's work ethic and his just how good of a person he is. So you're getting a very high character individual. Is pretty explosive downhill. Well, like, he'll come downhill with a big head of steam, and he wants to hit. He can hit like a brick. He has a bit of a blitz and upside, as he does a good job finding the quickest route to get to a ball carrier in the backfield or to the quarterback. I think last season he had 26 pressures, 3 sacks, so very nice. And also probably at his best in coverage in zone. He's got a good feel for zone. In terms of, like, I think he's a limited athlete. Like, he's not the fastest guy, he's not the smoothest mover, but if you get him in a zone-heavy scheme, I think you're going to be A-okay, because he's someone that effectively, like, can read coverage, can read what's going on underneath, and make a play on it. So he's very much a minimal gain guy. Like, hey, you may catch it on me, but those 4 to 6 yards where deep that you're not going to get any yards after the catch. So that's pretty nice as well. I do think just him in pursuit, it's not always great. Like, sometimes he takes tight angles and it doesn't give him the cleanest tackles. Like, he does have a missed tackle rate that's a little higher than you would like. It's not in, like, dangerous territory, but it's not that impressive. So it's like, yeah, maybe taking better angles to be able to get cleaner hits on ball carriers. On top of that, he does struggle to disengage when he does get locked up by second level blockers, offensive linemen. Like, he's just typically out of the play at that point. So yeah, I think mid to late day 3 is probably a good call for there when it comes to Woodard. Next on the list, we got ourselves RJ Harvey, running back out of Central Florida. Someone that got on my radar last draft season and ended up returning to the Golden Knights. And he's coming in at 5'9", 205. He has just been spectacular. You go back to last year where he had over 1,400 yards, 18 total touchdowns. He had 74 forced missed tackles. Just very impressive. Had a great game against TCU, by the way. And I think he's like in the top 3 of rushing yards and forced missed tackles currently. So yeah, no, he's having a good year. But popped off against TCU for over 180 yards. Had 2 rushing touchdowns on top of a receiving touchdown as well. His only catch of the game, I believe, ends up going for a 29-yard touchdown. But the dude, he at 5'9", he's got that lower build, lower stature, and he plays with good lower body strength. Always keeps his feet moving through contact. I'm a sucker for guys that just keep the feet churning through contact. I like it. I love it. So good stout lower body. Also quick feet. He's got good stop-start ability. Just good footwork, and it just allows him to be really shifty. He can literally make you miss. And plays with great vision. There is him as a pass catcher. Hasn't really been utilized a ton this year just yet, but you did see it last year. So I do expect as the year goes on, Central Florida will tap into that. But he has been very fruitful when used in the passing game. He's a guy that can just create out in space. I do think he's a bit of a middle-in athlete for a smaller back. Like, he's quick, but don't think he has got elite speed. But we've seen that. We've seen Bucky Irvin. He ends up going in, I think, the 4th round. He ends up going into like I think it was either the 3rd or 4th round. I think it was 4th round. But Bucky Irvin ends up going. He didn't test out that well for being a smaller back, but you liked the play speed on the field. You liked the vision for the most part, and I think RJ Harvey could find himself in the same type of projection realm when it's all said and done. Again, he was someone that I watched last year that I expected to come out dent, but yeah, big fan of him. Do want to see maybe more reps in pass protection, but I feel like if you're using him as a pass protector, then you're really missing out on what he can do for you as a receiving option out of the backfield. So, RJ Harvey, love that you're doing well. Next, I got Corey Kiner, running back out of Cincinnati. Took on the Miami Redhawks this past week. Ends up going for 126 yards and a tutty. Coming in at 5'9", 210 pounds. And he's a good hard-nosed runner. He really, really is. He's got that nice, nice at 5'9", you got a lower stature. So you're able to get under a lot of defenders' pads. Another guy that just keeps the feet moving with a good stout enough lower half. He does a good job of just keeping low to the ground. Like, he's got that low center of gravity. Good vision, good quick. So he's very similar to RJ Harvey in a lot of regards. And that's kind of why I bring him up here. Because the one thing that I think the one thing that separates Harvey from Kiner is their utilization in the passing game and how dynamic of a ball carrier that they are. So Harvey, way more dynamic, way more utilized as a receiving option. When it comes to Kiner, like, legit, he's never used in the passing game. Like, when he is, those typically those options, those chances, those opportunities are few and far between. But when they do get him in there as like a pass blocker, I think he's gritty. He's willing to, like, okay, I'm about to get ran over, but at least I could be a roadblock for my quarterback. So, like, he's a willing pass protector, but again, not utilize a ton in the run game or in the passing game. When it comes to him as a ball carrier, he's just not that dynamic. I talked about RJ Harvey. He uses that quick footwork and shiftiness to make guys miss. Kind of just lowers the shoulder. There's really no make you miss ability there on tape. It's just like, oh no, I can run through these guys. These guys. It is what it is. I got it. So, like, Kiner and Harvey, very similar in terms of size and athleticism. It's just what they do with it that kind of separates them. And that's not to knock, like, Kiner too much. Like, I think he can be a draftable prospect. He had a solid year last year with Cincinnati, and he's on his way to having a really good year this year once again for Cincinnati. He is a guy with a pedigree. He's a former 4-star recruit who went to LSU, and after a year, and he was actually very utilized in the rotation his freshman season, but ended up wanting to move closer to home as he's from Cincinnati. So, Kiner, another guy to keep an eye on in this stacked running back class. Truly, truly is. Next on the list is Will Campbell, left tackle out of LSU, took on South Carolina and took on Kyle Kennard, took on Dylan Stewart. But he comes in at 6'6", 320 pounds, gave up 2 pressures on 47 pass blocking snaps. And if you watch the game, I know PFF had Will Campbell with the lowest pass blocking grade among the offensive line for LSU. That's because he took on Dylan Stewart most of the time in a hell of a matchup. Like, these are 2 top 10 prospects, and Dylan Stewart's only a freshman, true freshman, I think. So he's gonna be a top 10 pick down the line. And he was a guy that was just blowing up like people's X feed because it was like, oh my gosh, this cat might be a top 10 pick right now. Look at what he's doing. And I thought Will Campbell stepped in and was like a good litmus test for Dylan Stewart and where he could get better in some regards. But that's not to say Will Campbell was perfect. He certainly wasn't. There were times where it was like Dylan Stewart was too much to handle and too quick. And Will Campbell was unable to put complete contact on him, was unable to get his hands on him in any meaningful way, as Dylan Stewart's got this nice little ghost move where he then hits him with the dip, and it was good. And I mean, for me, Will Campbell, like I thought hand utilage was something he needed to work on this year. So Dylan Stewart, he ends up winning in terms of, okay, Will Campbell, hand utilage, not exactly like the most active hands. Let's take advantage of that. Let's just be too quick for him to be able to even put a hand on. Okay, cool. Give you the win there. There's another rep in this game where I believe it's LSU creates a moving pocket with play action. And I think Nussmeier rolls out a little. Maybe not. I think he does roll out a little bit. And Dylan Stewart tries to take him on, I think, with a bull rush. And Will Campbell does a good job of locking him up at the point of attack. Dylan Stewart, since it's a little rollout to his side, tries to get up to, I think, deflect the pass. And freaking Will Campbell was just like, oh, that was a mistake, and puts him right on his butt. Freaking disgusting. So Will Campbell might come out of this game with the lowest passing grade of the rest of the offensive line for LSU. Will Campbell by far had the toughest time having to take on Dylan Stewart a majority of the time. And I thought looked good. There were some losses. For the most part, I thought Will Campbell had a lot of wins and looked good. He looked every part of being a top 10 pick. And deserves to be talked about as such. He is definitely that. For me, he's the 1B to Kelvin Banks being the 1A. Some people kind of have that flip-flopped, and I think that's fine. They're both really good prospects. All right. Next on the list, Ernest Green III, left tackle out of Georgia. He didn't play good, guys. He didn't play good. Coming in at 6'4", 320 pounds. He ended up allowing 4 pressures on 23 pass blocking snaps. And it felt like it was so much so, like where he was, I think he ends up getting benched. I can't recall if he gets banged up. I think he gets benched because he played bad. He's a guard in the NFL. He's a guard in the NFL. Listen, I still like Ernest Green as a prospect, but this dude's a guard in the NFL. Absolutely. Listen, he's strong. He plays with good quicks. Has a bit of that fire hydrant. Just once he plants his feet in the ground, he is stout. But he is a bit I said this earlier in the year. He's a bit Jekyll and Hyde in some regards, man. It just feels like he doesn't always play with a killer instinct. He doesn't always I think it's really just maybe it could be a football IQ thing with him, but the hand usage isn't there yet with him. The coordination's not there with him, and that was apparent this week. So Ernest Green, I think I came into the year with a 3rd round grade on him. Probably bump that down to maybe an early to midday 3 grade. We'll see. I'll probably make that decision if he's a starter against Bama and see how he does against Bama. But yeah, I'm pretty sold on him being a guard now in the NFL. I'll eventually make that adjustment in my draft guide for you guys that have it. Next is Jalen Walker. We're sticking with this game. He had a monster game against Kentucky as a pass rusher. Had 8 pressures, 2 defensive stops, had a batted pass. a 22.2% pass rush win rate, and I think he's emerged as a first round edge player in this class. 6'2", 245. He can drop back into coverage. Now, I'm not saying he can do a lot of complicated. I'm not saying he's anything more than a spot dropper. Like maybe you just drop him in a hook zone, or you can honestly man him up. I think on like a running back and whatnot, even maybe the tight end. But what he's been doing as a pass rusher has been utterly ludicrous. He is picked up from Mikael Williams being out. And honestly, if you go back to last year's tape, he looked like the better pass rusher compared to Mikael Williams. So, like, he's going to be a big riser on my board. I entered the year with him as a second round grade. I think he's going to the first round. The big thing for me with him was like the sample size was small and he hadn't played a lot of football yet. And I just didn't really know what he was going to end up being. Is he going to be more off-ball linebacker or more edge player? That question's kind of been answered early in the season. He is definitely more of a edge player who can drop back into coverage. It does need to get stronger. 245 can be a little light in the pants. You want him to get better in that regard as a run defender, but he does play with that dog in him. And I just don't want to see him washed out of the run game when it comes to the NFL level, just because it's stronger, it's more physical. But I'm a big fan of Jalen Walker. He's going to be a big riser when I release my mid-season rankings. All right, next I got Braden Swinson, edge out of LSU. We're going back to the LSU South Carolina game. Coming in at 6'4", 250 pounds. And I think reminded people of like how good he is. I feel like he gets lost in this. He entered the year with a 5th round grade from me, but it definitely felt like he kind of got like people forgot about him after like if you go back to like 2021, he had made his first start against Ohio State when he was playing for Oregon and had himself a hell of a good ball game. But during that game, ends up tearing his MCL. From there, he just becomes a rotation player the following season. He ends up transferring to LSU, where he ends up not being a starter for most of the year, but he's used a lot in the rotation. And he was good last year. Like, you look at the win rate from him, 15.9% in 2023. A true pass rush win rate, which basically just takes all influence from the run game out, and it's 25.6. That's in the upper percentile. And now that he's the full-fledged starter, he's getting the snaps that he deserves. This game, 7 pressures, 3 sacks, 3 defensive stops, which if you're unfamiliar with that statistic, it's just a stop resulting in either a loss or no gain. Had 3 of those. Had a 40% pass rush win rate. He was utterly ridiculous. Ridiculous in that regard. Freaking love it. And I love that now he's getting at least I hope he gets some shine on him. Because he's got the length. He's got the flexibility. The hand usage is really good. He has been a spot dropper at times in his career, more so at Oregon. But still, he's been a spot dropper at times. And he's just improved immensely the last couple of seasons. Now, I'm glad that he's getting the chance to be the guy. That was kind of a con I had with him, was like, man, he's just never been the guy wherever he was. And now he's getting that opportunity. The run defense does need to get better, and I think if he's going to make himself a day 2 prospect, that area needs to get cleaned up. And I think part of that has to do with just maybe adding a little more play strength potentially. Because there are times where he gets out physical. And I mean, keep in mind, I think he's going to probably be like a older prospect, like 23, going into his rookie year. But I love what he's been doing as a pass rusher, and I love that he's getting that opportunity to shine. All right, let's talk about a little Travis Hunter, wide receiver slash corner, though I'm starting to consider him more of a wide receiver just because, hey, that's who gets the most money in the NFL. But he had a really good game against Colorado State. Kind of a revenge game. That was the game that injured him last season. But coming in at 6'1", 185, ended up going 13 receptions for 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had an interception in that game that he returned. I believe that ended up putting Colorado in the red zone because it was in Colorado State territory. He did allow, I think he allowed 6 receptions on 8 targets for 54 yards. So that is something also you want to note. But to be fair, when it comes to this defense, he plays a lot of man. He's typically covering the best player of the opposition, and in this case, that would have been Torrey Horton in this game. But he's a top 10, top 5 prospect in this class. He's gonna be someone that this is where I project him to be. I think he's gonna be a wide receiver primarily, and there will be some packages for him defensively. I don't think there ain't no way he's playing 120, 130 snaps a game in the NFL. I'm sorry, that's just not believable. That's just not believable. The NFL's too physical, and it's just not going to end well for him if that's the case. I think you could play him maybe 10 snaps defensively a game, but I do think wide receiver is probably where he ends up going. And I'm honestly a little more 50-50 on, is he a better wide receiver prospect than he is corner? I'm kind of 50-50 on that, so I'm not 100%. But definitely a special talent. You love the quicks. He's shown really good recognition. I think he's a better zone corner than man corner. Just as a man corner, he's got the thin frame where he could get beat around, but he shows he shows a good understanding, him being a receiver, shows a good understanding for route recognition and route concepts, able to identify, say he's out on the perimeter and teams are trying to throw a high-low concept on him. He knows the proper depth to take where he can maybe make an impact both downhill and maybe having to get upfield to make a play on the ball. I think he just has that type of recognition. But you also take those quicks as a ball carrier and as a receiver. And he's not like he's the most nuanced route runner. He's still learning. He still needs to be a bit more polished in that regard. But he is just such a ridiculously quick athlete that he can go out there and out athlete people, get open, and then take it to the house. Really good acceleration on his part. Really, really good. Now, when it came to him as a corner in this Colorado State game, it wasn't necessarily just Torrey Hunter, but you also had other receivers that were able to get, I don't want to say underneath, but where they were able to stack him and put him in trail position, and that gave enough room for maybe a good intermediate gain as long as the quarterback put it on the money. There were a couple of instances of that, but I'm kind of nitpicking on a guy who, how many snaps did he end up playing this game? So he ends up playing 64 on defense, and then you go to the offense. He ends up playing, where are you at? 59. So he ends up playing 120 snaps in this game. That's just freaking ridiculous. Stinking ridiculous. Last person I want to talk about, just because I want to talk about the injury, I kind of highlighted it a little bit earlier. Quinn Ewers ends up having an abdominal injury, and I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be frank. I'm not too worried about it. I'm just not. It sounds like it's not severe. He will miss the game against Louisiana Monroe. So kind of is what it is in that regard. But I don't know. I don't know if you bring him back against Mississippi State because they're a bad team. You could probably rely Archie to do that. Just like rest up and get ready for the tough games that lay ahead in the schedule. But it's good to see that he will be back. But now this begs the question when it comes to Quinn Ewers. This is a cat that's missed a couple of games almost every year, right? Like, let's take a look at this. Like, this is a guy that's missing like a game or two every year. I'm just pulling up his bio right now just to confirm. All right. Yeah. Okay, so 2023, he missed a game because of an injury to his throwing shoulder. 2022, he missed 3 games after suffering a clavicle sprain in his non-throwing shoulder. And I put a little red flag here for the injury for shoulder injuries. While none of the injuries have been serious, they were on his shoulders, and that's worth noting. This is an abdominal injury, but it's like, okay, now he has missed at least a game the last 3 years, 1 game per year. Granted, 3 games in 2022. Is that going to be a concern in the NFL? You're sub 200. That's not ideal. Typically, you want your quarterback 10, at least 210, please. You gotta get up to 15 pounds. So, yeah, I think that's probably the bigger question here when it comes to Quinn Ewers. Are you gonna miss games every year? Because what do they say in the NFL? Availability is the best ability you can have. In that game against UTSA, he did have an interception, did have a fumble. But he went 14-16 for 185 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's still playing really good football. I'm not worried about it. But now the injuries are a little more concerning. While they never are severe, are you gonna be the Terrion Armstead of quarterbacks where you're just missing a game every year? I think that's a fair question. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Who are some of the guys that maybe overwhelmed or underwhelmed you this past week in college football? Go ahead and just let me know in the comment section. If you want more draft content, I got it on the channel. Go ahead and take a look at that. I'm going to have a mock draft out later today, so be on the look for that. But before I head out, I do want to give a shout out to some of the people in the chat because I always love your support. And just thank you for it. We had Walt talking Archie Manning is the truth. Got Izzy. How you doing, Izzy? Said the first time I said the Boston College quarterback's name, it was correct. I'll get it down eventually. It is what it is. We got Teflon John. He was asking what happened to the Texas quarterback. Abdominal injury. Doesn't look severe. Nintendo Mike. He's happy about his Illini. Well, I'm happy for you, buddy. Vigilante, chances of Broncos drafting Travis Hunter. I mean, considering the Broncos will probably be in the top 5, probably you can throw probably say there's like a 20% chance, 15, 20%. But thank you for joining me today. We will be back tomorrow talking about the NFL, going it game by game, and as well doing our new power rankings. Ooh, so be there for that tomorrow morning. Brandon just entered the chat. Got to give him a shout out. After these first 2 games, I don't know who I want the Texans to draft now. That's fair. But thanks again, as always. And as always, until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.